A small tale. There's a girl. There was a girl. Her father was a man of little means. Her mother, a little else more, poverty-struck family. No prospects for moving up any kind of ladder because the social structure meant it was incredibly hard to move up. No matter how hard you worked. Even as a young girl, she grew up, and as she was growing up, she would hear. One of the first things that she would hear in her life was her father rowing with her mother about how difficult it would be to have a child, to keep a child when it was difficult to look after themselves as it was. First things she heard. She grows up a bit, and a couple of years go by. More than a good 6-7 years go by. About 10, 11, 12. She's walking around her little town. Now, in the area that she lives in, most people are in very much similar situations. And what can she hear? What she can hear is the sound of destitution, the sound of constant arguments, of crying, of screaming, of shouting. And in some places and in some senses, a shocking silence. As she walks past an alley, and she doesn't look. She keeps her head down. Being a young girl in a place, growing up in a place like that, in a rough place, a rough neighbourhood where dangerous things happen to young women. She walks past an alley. As she walks past, she hears a scream. This is commonplace for her now. And she keeps on walking because she fears that it will happen to her and she will get herself noticed if she stops and looks up. As the girl continues to move through the town, she starts to hear a difference in the sounds around her. She still keeps her eyes down because that's what she's used to do, so that she doesn't draw attention to herself for her own safety. And the different sounds are that of laughter, sounds of happiness. She looks up, and the area she's walked into seems to be not all that much different to what she left behind. However, the streets are a little bit cleaner. Things are looked after a bit better. It's still a very poor place, but there seem to be some standards. But even as she stands there staring around, she does hear that odd scream, that odd sound of crying. amongst all those sounds of happiness and, again, strangely, peaceful silence. She walks on, and she sees, and as she walks on, sounds change around her again. She starts to hear people talking in the street, just happy. She can hear the sound of life getting on. She doesn't hear the sound of crying. She doesn't hear the shouts of anger. She doesn't hear of rage. She doesn't hear the pleas of desperation. And when she looks up, she sees this area is completely different from the last two areas that she was walking around. Everything is clean. Everything is fancy. What does she hear? From the first person who comes near her. Why are you here? I was just walking. Well, we don't want you here. We don't want your kind here. And the young girl asks, what do you mean, my kind? Lazy people that can't be bothered to earn money. You come from a family that can't afford to pay for itself, to rely on others. A disgusting point of view, but this is what she hears from this affluent part of the town. Not charitable. Would you like some help, dear? No. What she hears is, why are you here? After hearing this, the girl decides to herself that she won't take that. She will prove them wrong. Another 10 years pass. Maybe 12. And the young girl is now a young woman. And she did prove a lot of people wrong. She persevered, put herself through school. She persevered, put herself through college and university, and got herself, into a comfortable job, and has started rising up through the ranks. But what is she hearing as she's trying to get through all of this? You're not gonna make it. Why would someone from your background be able to get that far? What makes you think? This is everything this woman hears, consistent. She perseveres. She fights for her position. In the end, the young lady, through this hard work, which is she is consistently also heard throughout her education and her working life from the establishment, that hard work pays off. Hard work is how you get benefits in life. So she puts the hard work in. She ends up ultimately as a shareholder in a business that she helped create. But unfortunately for her, the majority of the board are men. White men. Older than she is. She's making waves. But she's still hearing the whispers. She'll never last. She won't make it. People like her never do. So she tries to make changes to make it so that women like her that did make it are given more incentives, more opportunities, better opportunities to get to the position that she's at. But the board, they don't like this. The other members of the board don't like this. They maneuver against her. They frame her for some fraud or so, or something. And they tell her, you were warned. Through all of this, she's hearing what they're telling her, and she hears them say to her, you were warned not to push it too far. People like you don't control the situation. In her head, all the woman can hear through her anger and rage as this humiliation is taking place are the memories of the cries of destitution, the shouts of rage, the screams of pain and torture that she grew up around, and is afraid of being forced back to that point. She can hear the glee in these men's voices as they proclaim their superiority over her and her kind. She heard the hard work pays. She heard many other things. But because the right voices were so hard to hear, all she could hear were the wrong ones. And so her life she led, whilst she worked hard, was down the wrong route because she had not heard the right voices. She didn't know what the sound of the right way was. She couldn't hear it. Because there was so much more else to hear that would distract her. The woman, she died in destitution and humiliation. All because she could not hear other perspectives, because they were drowned out by the things that she consistently heard growing up, deafened her to the sounds of others. And even after she tried to fight against that grain, she was still forced to hear the cries of the destitute and those who could not afford to get to the position that she had fought for and lost. This is a metaphor for situations that happen across the country in different contexts. It's not always a woman doesn't always, it's not always a case of being shareholder in a business. These details shift, but the nature of the story is very similar, and it's all about what they can hear and what they can't. And the situation is made so that they can't hear what a better opportunity would sound like. because those voices are drowned out. It's depressing, but it's true. This is likely a very true story. Very true for someone. Very true for a bunch of people, probably. Different aspects of this story might mean things to different people. And I'm not entirely sure this is my story that I've come up with. Again, this is done in the Bardic tradition, and these kind of stories are important. They can teach us lessons, but if we refuse to hear these stories, or if we aren't able to hear these stories because they are drowned out by nonsensical ones, then we won't learn and we can't move forward. Again, there are likely to be other stories along this tradition, and you can draw your own judgment on what they mean and who they are about. They mean something to you. If it describes something you've seen, let me know. If you think it's complete tripe, let me know. But this story would not go away. And so I decided to share it. As far as I'm concerned, the ancestors spoke to me this story. Or spoke this story to you, not through me. I'm not entirely sure what the lesson is. You could let me know. But I feel that these sort of tales are important. We need to start listening. You need to be able to hear everything that we can. Because focusing on just one small group of sounds to the exclusion of all else is one of the reasons for so much conflict and so much misunderstanding and so much evil. I hope everyone having a good morning. Har en god morgen. Bless us Thursday. This has been Shadowita, and this is my Dor Kvitska.